Hello, Becca.
Hi, Dee. You didn't hear me say that the whole Leadership Academy class can hear you, so don't say anything inappropriate. She did hear me. She's just on mute now.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. It looks great. That looks great. That setup.
Okay, good. So what I'm gonna do is do this for some of the context slides, and then I'm gonna say, and I have some special guests, and then I'll move to that.
Awesome.
So let me get the screen up. I'm gonna test the way the video looks as well for the other camera.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Yeah,
one
we can
person's
see
cut-
everybody. Brian, you're a little cut
A
off.
little cut off.
Move in
Yeah.
a little bit.
And the young lady on the left as well, just a little bit.
Yeah. Addie, you're a little cut off.
Maybe you could move forward a little bit more.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
No, we got everybody.
Oh,
And I'll be behind you guys. I know that's super awkward, but just like pretend like I'm a voice. Help you on, look at me. For everybody that's in the room, because we are live broadcasting, the sound is actually being recorded through that computer. So anything that you all talk and say will be picked up. So I will try and be muted when we have some other people on the Zoom that are talking. I'll try to have it muted, but in case I forget or when they're talking. Again, thank you for being part of our pilot first hybrid event in our office.
I still think it'd be better if Addie got a little closer
Yeah.
to Trisha.
Yes. Or maybe moved up a little bit to get her in.
Yeah,
Move a little bit up, they said.
Yeah.
there we go.
That's good.
Yeah.
And make sure that they're projecting as well. I don't think I've heard any of them speak yet. So we want to make
Okay.
sure they're projecting
Let's-
as well.
Test that. Jenny, will you say something? Hello. Did you hear that?
Again.
But use your outside voice. So
Outside voice. Okay. Hello, I'm Jenny. I'm with the Garden and Apple Group.
no. Okay.
A little louder.
Little louder.
Yeah.
Loud. Use that diaphragm.
More outside.
I'm Jenny and I'm with the Garden and Apple Group.
That's
I got a
better.
thumbs up from Jackie.
You have to
Okay.
say-
Yeah. So all of you just talk a little bit louder than you normally would.
Yes.
And remember that as you get engaged in the conversation too.
Yes.
It'll be easy to forget that. So
You just
pretend like you're
Right.
talking to the outside window. You know, people.
Well,
out
and they
there.
actually have a live audience in front of them. So just
Yeah.
pretend Leah's actually like in the parking lot.
Yeah,
Scream at
that's it.
Leah.
feedback, like volume up, turn it up.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I've got
I'm
a
going to go
minute.
on mute because in a minute the people will start popping in, right?
Yeah, I'm going to just go ahead and start the stream, but I will chat you when it is actually live. So
So I'll be the only one not on mute now, correct?
correct. Yep. And I will chat you when we're live. And
So Andrew, you want to go on mute as well?
Sure.
We've got some people joining that are, looks like participants. If you can just make sure you're muted. Ling and Heather, Jordan, Teresa, Jim, Jerry. Yeah. Not sure how that happened, but we're glad you're here. Just stay on mute. Otherwise, you're going to end up being a part of this show and that you may not want to be. There we go. And Ling, would you mute as well? Perfect. Dawn, would you please mute? Thank you. Mute your microphone. Dawn and Robert, we have a couple people joining us. If you would just mute, that would be awesome. Thank you. And welcome to everybody else to our 2.0 town hall meetings. We have a different focus each month, as you know, if you've been there. And today the focus is emerging leaders. So we've got 450 members registered, and I'm grateful for each one of you taking time to be with us, to hear some of the trends that we're seeing related to the future of the profession. I've got a couple of opening slides, and then I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Development, Rebecca Brown, who is watching those hard trends and soft trends and looking for those opportunities. And for the last 3 days, Rebecca, along with Bill Sheridan and Tom Hood, they've been teaching our annual Leadership Academy. And so we're excited to share insights from 6 of these emerging leaders as part of today's town hall. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being a member. And Becca, next slide. If you've joined us before, you know what this is. We love to get your insights by polling using Conferences.io. So if you would just type into your browser, don't Google it, type right into your browser, macpa.cnf.io. And I think we have a couple of questions open there. We always like to start with good news. So what's going good in your world, personally or professionally? And then tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you work, your role, and your level of experience in your organization. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that, to go into macpa.cnf.io. And then I'll walk through these next couple of slides and we'll see what we're learning there. So Becca, next slide. This is kind of how we summarize the focus of all that we do for you at MACPA. Connect, protect, achieve, leading and transforming the profession in Maryland to make a positive impact and help a CPA-led profession achieve success. So next slide is our member promise. We kicked this off last month. It's our promise to you as members of MACPA. And as I'm sure you are all reimagining your organizations as well in this challenging time, and it seems like it's getting more challenging. We're doing the same thing at MACPA, and we call it MACPA 3.0. We're doing that to make sure that we are providing the community like this, all 450 plus people on this call, the resources, the professional development, the advocacy, that you need to thrive in your careers and the work you do with your teams and for your organizations. This is our promise and our commitment, all centered on MACPA's purpose and values and core focus that we believe will help us help you do great work going forward. So next slide. This is our leadership team. I didn't introduce myself, but I'm Jackie Brown. I'm the CEO of MACPA, and this is the amazing leadership team I get to work with, along with, 10 other people on our team. But this is our leadership team. Skip Balatko, picture up there next to me, our CPA and CFO. Bill Sheridan is our Chief Communications Officer. I think he's in the room for the town hall today too. He led last month's town hall for us when I was on vacation. Laura Swans, CPA and Controller. Dee Sullivan is the magic behind all the learning that happens at MACPA. She's our Director of Learning, making all of this work. Rebecca, you're going to meet, or you have met. She's going to lead this town hall with our emerging leaders. Mary Beth Halpern's on vacation, but she's all things technical services, legislative, regulatory. Many of you know her as well. And then Blue Ocean Ideas, Greg Rittler's the CEO, and he's on our leadership team. They provide all of our marketing and technology support for everything we do. So that's us. And now we want to sort of hear a little bit about what we see in our polls. Becca, we've got lots of people answering. Do you want to walk through that?
Sure, let me pull this up. So we got some good news. We like to always start with good news, as you might have seen in other town halls and meetings, just setting the positive mood, because our brains, when they are set in a positive way, we're better able to critically think, better able to learn. So we have a bunch of people saying they're still COVID free. So that's fantastic. We like to hear that. Proud of where Maryland is on what we're doing and how we've survived this pandemic, the second wave or third wave. Good health, lots of people taking vacations. Somebody's resume is getting some positive attention. So maybe they're seeking a new job. Somebody's having a date night tomorrow night, which is fantastic, very important. Work from home full time. So I know it's not for everybody, but somebody's pretty excited to have that. And 9/15 is still 26 days away. So you still have time for our tax folks. And then looking at where our audience is working, it looks like we have pretty wide range here. So we have about 20% of our audience in private companies. So those of our business and industry members. Looks like we have 15% of our attendees right here now at sole practitioners. And then let's see, I'm forced to do some quick math. We got 17% there, and it's moving on me. So I'm trying in the public accounting realm, and lots of others. 13% retired. So you probably had lots of good news to share. But we are excited to have you all with us today. So we have, the largest percentage here. Oh, it just changed on me. It's going back and forth between three different ones. Manager or mid-management, senior management, senior manager, director, and C-suite. So a lot of decision makers on our town hall today. And last but not least, we wanted to ask this question because you might have seen from the title, this is actually our emerging leader focused town hall. And so I thought there would be some people that wouldn't maybe consider themselves emerging leaders sneak in. And it looks like 81% of you maybe are in that boat, which is totally fine. We welcome you. I think you're going to learn a lot today too. We have some of our emerging leaders that just finished Leadership Academy joining us in person. So this is our first kind of hybrid event in our new office setup that we have. And so you'll see them in just a second, but excited that we have 2% less than 3 years and 2% 3 to 5 years. So we'd love to see those numbers grow, right? The future of our profession, we want them to get them involved now. So you 20 plus years, folks, teams involved in MACPA, get them on these town halls as well. And I think that is our last poll, Jackie. So I'm going to go back to the presentation.
Awesome. So this is a slide we see all the time. Bill Sheridan likes to talk about this one because he works with all these folks. These are our preferred providers. We consider these organizations and the leaders in each of these organizations, we consider them partners, partners in your success. So like us, they want to make the profession and the work we all do better. And we're really happy to have one of those leaders with us here today. Andrew Hatfield is the co-founder and chief growth officer at SafeSend. And he's got a couple of slides to share before turning it back over to Becca and Andrew. We're glad you're here.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. Look at all those great partners you have on screen. And the experience so far with your group has just been wonderful. Sign of the times, right? You know, in 2019, all across the US, you had firms going into these annual planning meetings. And in those meetings, somebody was saying, digital transformation is years away. We don't have to do anything anytime soon to address this. And if you want to change the slide, I think what happened is 2020 came along and stopped Sally in her tracks. Now you might ask, what is Sally? But I think a lot of you know it's same as last year. And that mentality had kind of prevailed prior to 2020. But I'm going to tell you, 2020 really has stopped some things in their tracks that you can't do same as last year. So if we go to the next slide, an example would be ink signatures. 2020 stopped ink signatures in its tracks. For example, if your client is at home and remote and not coming in the office to sign in ink, you had to do it some other way. Next slide, please. It also stopped paper organizers in its tracks. So if your staff was at home, how would they print, package up, and mail these paper organizers to your tax clients? Next slide, please. And, you know, let's talk about the future, 2020 and beyond. I think we've all realized that it's all about the client experience, and the digital and remote client experience is what's going to win satisfaction with clients going forward, and a lot more of them. So if we go to the next slide, please. For the last 14 years, SafeSend has been building a suite for digital and remote transactions with taxpayers. So this is all about your tax engagement lifecycle. We work within the tax department to help facilitate automation in these processes, and also a great taxpayer experience if they're going to be a client that wants this remote and digital, for engagement letters, electronic signatures, paperless organizers, secure file exchange, assembly and delivery and e-signing of tax returns that include things like K-1 distribution, estimated payment reminders, invoice payments, and also extensions. So we can go to the last slide. And so if you're a firm that's looking to get better with your client experience when it comes to digital and remote tax engagements, take a look at safesend.com. Automations in our DNA, and we want to bring that to the market. Again, thank you so much for having me here and giving me a chance to talk to the audience.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for joining us and telling us about your resources. We really do see all of our preferred providers in that way. Tremendous resources, great white papers on their website, just really great things for our members, and that's why we partner with them. Other organizations that we partner with, of course, is our 100% membership organizations, and we are so grateful for their support in membership. It's crucial to our advocacy, and just wanted to give a shout out to them. If you aren't on this list and you want to be on this list, reach out to me and my team, and we can see what we can do to make that happen. And then also a big shout out to our champions. We actually have 2 of our champions on the panel that you'll see in just a second. But we see these as emerging leaders in your organizations, in your firms that want to get involved in MACPA, want to learn a little bit more, and want to be the MACPA's voice back at your organization. So thank you for these folks that do that for us. So this slide is actually from July's town hall. It might look familiar if you're able to join us on that. And July's town hall had 2 representatives from PCPS, and Lisa Simpson and, oh, I'm going to forget his name. That's a terrible thing, but Carl Peterson, thank you, the mystery voice in the room. Carl Peterson and Lisa Simpson talked through some of these issues, right, in firm evolution. What I was looking at, I wasn't able to be on that town hall, and I looked and I saw, you know, over 60% of these issues were human capital issues and things we needed to be focusing on, especially in our firms. And over 38% of them were directly related to the recruitment, the retention, and the development of your staff, right? AICPA to see about their 2021 top firm issues report. Apparently it's in the works. It will be released in September, but this is from 2019. And you can see there the top issue or top thing to really have a huge impact on our firms is staffing. Even though it's not the top one, it still makes the top 5 for sole practitioners. So staffing is super important, and there's a lot going on. So we wanted to kind of talk about that at this town hall, our emerging leader town hall. And I know what some of you are probably thinking, because I saw about 20% of you were in our BNI group. You're saying, this is firm centric, Becca. Well, I have it for you here. In May of our town hall series, we focused on our BNI members, and you all ranked the war for talent and the ability or inability to really delegate due to lack of skills, both in your top 5 issues as well. So this is a pipeline, it's a recruitment, it's a retention problem for the entire profession, not just public accounting, not just business and industry. So we've been highlighting a hard trend each month as part of these town halls. So today we're going to highlight that demographic category, right? Because hard trends fall into one of 3 categories. They're either technology, demographic, or their government regulations and standards. And we really focus on hard trends because those are the ones that are really likely to happen. We even equate them to future facts. But I have really good news about these particular ones, the CPA pipeline and this era of great resignation. These are actually not hard trends. Although demographic as a category is hard trends, these are what Daniel Burst would call soft trends. And so it means that they can be influenced. We can't really change the hard trends that baby boomers are reaching the retirement age. We can't reproduce a number of Gen X. I know everybody's looking for 40, 50-year-old managers, right? We can't make more of them. But we can influence the pipeline and the retention and development of our own people. So I shared this during the June town hall, but I wanted to give you a little bit of the landscape, the context of what we're looking at when we talk about pipeline. This is from AICPA's 2019 Accounting Graduate Supply and Demand Report. They are currently working on the updated one. But you can see in that top graph, we are seeing we saw a 4% decrease in the total number of accounting graduates from 2017 to 2018, which was the third year of a decrease. At the same time, NASBA saw that exam sections taken were steadily dropping as well. And so got to only 248,000 in 2019 when it had been 310 in 2016. Finally, it looks like in our numbers that only about 1 in 3 accounting graduates is ultimately becoming a CPA. And as you know, we need CPAs. That's how our economy and our financial world functions. So these numbers are still higher than some of the lowest points, but you can see the two kind of peaks are actually the year before a new exam hits. And there's always kind of a spike of let's hurry up and get the exam done. And so I think that kind of artificially inflates a number. But overall, we're seeing trends really decline, and that's concerning. Of course, those are national numbers. So what does that look like in Maryland? I went ahead and looked at our new CPA numbers. I haven't got them in for the 2020-2021 swearing in ceremony, which we are going to have. Hoping it's in person, so save the date for November 18th. But the national trends saw that a decrease of 14% over the 2 years following that last new exam spike. In Maryland, when we look at the same time period, we see a 21.6% decline in those 2 years. So it's not looking good, right? We're on this decline. I hear from our educators all the time that enrollments are down, and this was pre-COVID, right? And so the profession has gone, or the education has gone through a lot of changes through COVID. And so they're declining. Well, the primary demographic that we are trying to reach for this profession is Gen Z. And this is from Workforce Institute about the top 5 things that Gen Z wants in their careers, right? They want flexibility, which, by the way, now that we have COVID and that forced us to figure out how to work from anywhere or work from home, I don't see a trend of going back to less flexibility, I'll be honest. They want training and success skills. And this one's particularly interesting. They want in-person communication and a feedback. There hasn't been a whole lot of in-person communication over the last 16, 18 months. But if we've figured it out, if you've figured out how to onboard new employees, new team members virtually, you might be winning this game. And then next is trust. I think this actually echoes the flexibility notion that we saw as the first one. They don't want to be micromanaged, right? And it's not just about where they work, it's where, when, and how, right? They want to be trusted to get the work done, and they want to be measured by the outcome of their work, not just the inputs of their time and things like that. And then finally, they want clear career expectations and quick advancement. And I know in our work with firms, we see this as a constant struggle of providing those career paths for folks. This actually I saw last night, so I had to include it. There's this organization called Project Matriarchs that was started by 2 Gen Zs, and it launched in September of 2020 in the midst of the pandemic, with the goal of providing relief particularly to low-income working caregivers in the form of free or really discounted virtual learning help for their children, or even virtual kind of babysitting while the parents were home working. Since then, and it started to grow, since then they founded an advocacy branch of their organization, and they have done something called Pledge to Care. I found this really, really interesting. It's their first advocacy initiative. And basically, they are trying to mobilize Gen Z to express consensus and support for what they believe caregivers should be receiving from their employers. So they're working for higher minimum wage. They're working for childcare being part of an employer's responsibility or benefit package. They're working towards more parental leave and things like that. So this generation, they've recognized that they have a collective bargaining power, and they're crowdsourcing themselves together, getting signatures from Gen Zs saying, this is the environment that we want to work in. So if you want to hire us, here's changes you need to make. Really interesting stuff. Not mentioned in that list of kind of characteristics, but not because of its less importance, but because it's kind of almost assumed, is that Gen Z are digital natives, right? They expect the organizations that they work for to be as well. Now, post-pandemic, more than ever. This is actually from SAGE's Practice of Now 2020 report, and it showed that 84% of the respondents really believed that Gen Z had these progressive expectations, attitudes, and talents, and that in order to attract them, their organizations had to reflect and nurture those progressive ideas. The last sentence here, though, reads that Gen Z and millennials are positively characterized as inherently diverse, inclusive, and entrepreneurial. So the question begs, is the accounting profession in the broadest sense diverse, and is it inclusive? We partnered with Cal CPA and IMA last year to do a study, and while we've certainly made some progress, especially in the area of recruiting diverse talent, we have a really long way to go. So the numbers are pretty humbling. While the US accounting profession is 62% female, 9% Hispanic, 8.5% Black, and 12% Asian, for every 10 senior leaders, there's only 2 female and 1 non-white. And only half of the survey respondents believed the profession to be inclusive, and less than half believed it to be equitable. So not only does this mean something for recruitment, but it has devastating effects on retention too. On the left-hand side of the graphic, you can see the impact of the inequity and exclusion, and how that's not only preventing the advancement of minorities in the profession, it's actually causing them to leave, not just their organizations, but the profession altogether. So this is a huge issue that we're looking to tackle as a profession, and we have to do it together. And then, of course, there's this, like, as long as I feel like I'm just giving a lot of bad news. So for the first time in history, the number of openings is actually equaling the number of unemployed. And some are starting to call it the Great Resignation. Gallup estimates about 48% of America's workforce is actively job searching or looking for opportunities. 48%, that's crazy. 3.5 or over 3.5 million Americans resigned in just May alone. So while these are the talent trends we're facing, they are reversible. As I said, these are soft trends. So how can we do it? I believe we can do it by creating environments where people want to work with managers that care, who are engaged, and who give workers a sense of purpose, inspiration, motivation. It's been said that people don't leave organizations, they leave managers. So more than ever, I think managers need to give people a reason to stay, which is a perfect segue to what we're going to talk about now. You are actually now part of MACPA's Leadership Academy. You can't see it yet, but I'm going to change the view in just a second. And you're going to see that we have some of our profession's managers and emerging leaders, some people you might recognize from your organization. We just ended our Leadership Academy about an hour ago, and I asked some of them to raise their hand, and 6 of them gladly raised their hand. Hopefully gladly, they're not going to run away from me in a second, to be part of a panel to really talk about some of the things that they learned and how that they learned can really be applied to kind of this talent crisis that the profession is seeing. So So with that, I'm going to change the view and you're going to see them instead of me. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves because I would probably butcher it. So Brian, let's start with you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Hughes. I'm a director at Sagar and Rosenberg out of Rockville. I spend most of my time doing audit services as well as transaction and advisory, accounting advisory work.
Great. Jenny?
Hi, I'm Ginny. I work with the Gardner and Apple Group. I am a manager and we specialize in advising our clients in what they should do, what their books look like, and how to leverage that to be in a better position for tax.
Ryan.
Hello, I'm Ryan Welling. I work for Wirecard and Sora out of Hunt Valley. On the tax side and advisory services and consulting, we kind of run the gamut of everything from A&A work to bookkeeping. Just trying to take this experience back to the firm to better position ourselves going forward.
Awesome. Jason.
Hello, everyone. Jason Andrews with Friendship and Strong in Hunt Valley, Maryland. Again, mostly tax work that we deal with, but do a little bit of A&A work and, of course, consulting. I think everyone's got their hands in consulting these days. But yeah, just trying to kind of let everyone know, get a little inside scoop of what we went through for Leadership Academy and share everything that we learned that all firms should be educated on.
And Trisha.
Hi, everyone. I'm Trisha Catabini. I work at GRX CPAs and Advisors in Bethesda, Maryland. I'm currently a senior manager. I specialize specifically in audit work for not-for-profits. And one of the other things that I kind of do and wear another hat for is I am the AI champion and trailblazer. I like to call myself a trailblazer for my firm. I'm also an MACPA champion.
And finally, Addie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Addie Blickenstaff. I am with Damon and Stang CPAs and Advisors. I am a senior auditor and specialize in the realm of not-for-profit and government. I am also part of the MACPA Champion Group and excited to be a part of the 2021 Leadership Academy.
Thank you, guys. I need to switch something real quick. There we go. So this is what we talked about this week. We started Wednesday morning talking about how we really need to lead ourselves well before we can even begin to dream about leading others and then eventually, hopefully, leading organizations well. So we're going to talk through each of these areas and I'm going to ask them kind of what their biggest insights were and what they would want to share with you, our members throughout the state. So leading yourself. We started this Wednesday morning talking mostly about, if we aren't leading ourselves well, we can't lead others. And when you think about the analogy of getting on an airplane, which a lot of us probably haven't done in a while, or maybe we're starting to do, and how we have to secure our oxygen mask before helping or assisting others. And that starts with knowing ourselves and that self-awareness. So we talked about strengths. We talked about receiving feedback. And how important that is to development. And then we talked a lot about what it means to be a personal brand out there for ourselves in our career and for our organizations. So I wanted to ask you all and kind of raise your hand, maybe first person that wants to speak about what stood out for you during those conversations and that you would want to share with other emerging leaders or members of MACPA.
Sure. I think first, one of the things that I found really valuable from this was the Gallup strengths. So if you guys haven't done that, the amount of information that you get once you take, what was it, like a 25-minute questionnaire, and we got 2 packets and reports with fantastic information on identifying what your strengths are, and then actionable steps on what to do next. And then talking about the feedback piece that Rebecca mentioned, it's one thing, especially for a lot of managers or folks that are leading teams, you hear a lot about getting feedback and what you need to do to get feedback, but you don't really think receiving feedback piece and really being a champion for yourself and what you need to do in order to, one, go out and get that feedback, but then what do you do once you receive it as well? And there are a lot of actionable insights and steps and things that we discussed the other day that I found really valuable.
Yeah, one of the things that I think was important is when you find out what your strength is, to just go ahead and be good at that and concentrate your energy on that and surround yourself with people that are good at things that you're not good at, because that way you don't waste your energy doing things that you're not good at, because why would you? But then just do what you're really good at and just surround yourself. A good leader has other people next to them to, go forward and not just one person.
I love that, Jenny. For me personally, it was actually kind of shocking for me that I fell into a mostly influential category. I actually
Hey,
thought
everybody
of
speak up a little bit.
I thought I was more of an executor in terms, so I always saw myself as very good technically. I'm able to commit to my deadlines, get the work done, appease my clients. But then when I found out I was really in the influential category, I looked back kind of how my relationships with some of my peers and those of that work underneath of me, and how our relationships have evolved over the past several years that I've been in, say, a management type of role. And it actually became a little bit more clear to me that's where I need to focus in on my strengths. And surprisingly, I think my leaders have actually honed in on that strength for myself, which is pretty awesome too. So.
And to that point, one thing I took away from the first day kind of quote was that people aren't necessarily well-rounded, but teams should be. And that is really a focus on strengths of the whole team, to surround yourself with a diverse group of people that might think differently, and everybody has their own strengths, whether there's a doer, there's a thinker. And that ties back to the main theme of keeping everyone engaged in their work. So if everyone's on a well-rounded team and enjoys going to work, and enjoys having their thoughts and everything included, that will keep everyone engaged and happy in the work that they're doing.
Yeah, engaged people don't leave organizations, right? So it's a simple way, engage people in their strengths. Ryan. I'm sorry, Jason.
Yeah, I thought it was just interesting that right when we started, it was all about learning more about ourselves, like being a leader. And as Brian mentioned, like we went through, did the Gallup strengths test, and it wasn't only just what you do well and focusing on the strengths, but there's also a downside. You can be too positive, you can be too, executive wise. There's ways that you can maybe have excess and be too much, and you have to make sure you're conscious of that and you're not pushing too much on anyone. So it's also just being aware and open your eyes and understanding what you do well and maybe where you're being a little too much with your strength.
Yeah, where we have that kind of strength style dialed up and in excess, and how we need feedback, right? To let us know that, because it feels really great, right? We talked about an achiever strength, and how sometimes the achiever strength can set a pace that no one else can really keep up with, right? Because that's where they're getting their energy. They're in that strength zone. So having people that can give you honest feedback about that, and setting expectations for the rest of your team is really important.
I wanted to touch a little bit on what Brian said. We're quick to give feedback, but we have to also make sure we're asking for feedback about ourselves, or we're never going to grow as leaders. And naturally, that's probably a bit uncomfortable to go around and start asking, peers for feedback, but I think it's really important. And what I found helpful is, obviously we're getting a lot of feedback from the top down because we're being evaluated and we're going into supervisory meetings, but
Negative feedback.
yeah, I think it's important to ask from the bottom up. So ask our staff or ask the people who we are supervising, hey, what could I do better? How could I help you do your job better? Spin the question in a way that makes them want to answer, because they may feel just as uncomfortable giving you honest feedback as we feel asking for it.
And you put them on somewhat of a level playing field, and they'll certainly appreciate that. And one of the prongs to feedback was appreciation. I think Addie mentioned it when she does review notes. She always sprinkles in some, good job, and kind of be somewhat specific, not just say good job, but say something that really shows that they know what they're doing and builds them up a bit, instead of 20 review points that they're all just critical, bringing them down. It's always important, and I'm sure everyone knows themselves that they like feeling appreciated. And being aware that also there's different levels, maybe someone will produce better work if you show more appreciation, or maybe someone produces better work that's maybe more competitive, and the evaluations is where you need to focus more on.
And not everybody wants to be rewarded the same way. Like somebody might appreciate a couple $100, somebody might appreciate an afternoon off or a day off, or different people react to different benefits or different system of reward incentives. Yeah.
To circle back to Becca's conversation about the Gen Z, we are in the time where social media is everything, which means that recognition is happening in an instant, right? You post something and you're getting likes and recognition constantly. And in a recent survey, I actually found that for the Gen Z generation, over 65% reported that they want frequent feedback in their employer, and frequent meaning at least once a week. So we have to be cognizant of that, those little, hey, great job, or hey, you could do this better, is something we really need to be doing for this younger generation.
Addie, on that, one thing that really stuck with me, I think, Rebecca, you said this the other day, was, some people think no news is good news,
Yeah.
but for other people, no news is worst case scenario. So, you might not think that somebody's doing a bad job, but if you're not telling them they're doing a good job, or at least checking in with them, their mind could be running. It could be worst case scenario, I'm doing a terrible job, this is awful, and you don't know.
Yeah, I know I'm definitely that person. I like to hear that I'm doing a good job. I just happen to be a person that likes to hear and know the recognition is there. It's just me being truthful about myself. So I personally try to make it a point to do the same thing for my staff. And I think when I do that, you see this little spark, right? This spark or this twinkle in their eye that happens and occurs, and they're like, oh, okay. And they sit a little straighter when we were together in person. Like, you just see a body language shift and change. And that in turn helps to get them more productive and to want to work with you. So I love, working with my staff and being able to see those actual mind shifts and body shifts.
And I think that's contagious. I think the appreciation aspect of it, saying thank you or good job here and there, like other people pick up on that, and that'll certainly flow through the firm.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, it all emphasizes career growth within the firm from the top down. So with Gen Z, for instance, what Addie was saying, when you start as a staff or an intern, they want to know that they have a path, and they're not just there to complete work papers or tax return, that they have an actual career path and they're appreciated, and that they have someone that's investing in them to make them better as they grow.
I feel like we're kind of transitioning into our next phase.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when we talk about leading ourselves, right? What's our purpose? I think that was one thing we talked about as well, for not only focusing in on our strengths, but why do we do the work that we do? Most of us, I think, who've been in public accounting for a while, we are here because we love it. We thrive in this type of environment. And we, because of that, we know what our why is. And that, I think, can kind of transition, Becca, for you. But let's instill that into our younger generation.
I'm just going to remind you guys, I think we need to talk even louder. I know I'm back. When I come back here, they can probably hear me pretty loud. But yeah, so on Thursday, we kind of transitioned from talking about how we lead ourselves well to, okay, now I'm in this management role, right? We call it the bounce sometimes through our Business Learning Institute. You have that technical skills and you're leading yourself through that. And now all of a sudden you're responsible for other people. So we talked about some of the essential skills of collaboration, which kind of feels like a weird skill to learn. It's like, how do you teach that, right? But there's a real skill around facilitation and around building consensus and really asking people what they think and bringing people together for a common purpose, as Trisha just said. So we talked about how leadership had changed over the years. We talked about aspects of leaders of the past and leaders of the future, and the good and the negative on both sides, and how can we kind of learn from leaders in the past to build the leaders of the future, and what does that look like? We talked about delegation. One of the hardest things, I think, especially for people that are in that executing strength, they like to get things done and they like to see that kind of check off. and to change our mindset about delegation and to see how important and developmental it is for those that we work with. And then how to run a meeting. And then we finally started to talk a little bit about strategic foresight, but I'm going to leave that for the last one. So again, same question, kind of what stood out for all of you and what are you excited about to bring back to your teams? You all lead teams of different sizes and in your organization. You're leading others already. What stood out to you that you want to bring back to your team or you want to make sure that the rest of the MACPA audience knows? And again, pretend like they are really far away and with your voice.
I mean, I think through this whole 3-day training is really tough to find, a couple things that were amazing. Everything was, but I think there was just so much to take away, so much to learn, and from the leading others session, a couple key things that really stood out to me that I'm sure everybody notices that, but most meetings that we go to, nothing gets done. And how many meetings are on our calendars right now that you just talk and talk and talk, and then you end up having a meeting the next day where you just talk and talk and talk, and it's just this vicious circle where nothing ever gets done. So there were really 2 sessions that we went through that there were so many tools and takeaways from the leading by sticky notes, leading bigger groups and collaborations, and then also the strategic meeting. And I felt going through that session, there were just like so many ideas that I had in my head, but didn't really know how to execute them, get them out. And in talking about leading a strategic meeting, planning for that strategic meeting, I kept finding when Bill was talking through this, I kept writing things down. Like I filled 3 or 4 sticky notes out just as he was going through things. I kept, I could take that away, right? I could take that away. Just the thought process that goes to and get ready for some of these meetings that I don't think, most people think through, which is why you end up having these meetings where nothing gets done.
Yeah.
One thing with the sticky notes was that it gives a voice to people who would not talk during a meeting, the more shy, introverted people who are just sitting and just going through the flow of having the meeting, and everybody else makes their decision for them, whether they like it or not. This gives a voice to everybody, and it kind of shows that even if you didn't think about it, people kind of agree to the same consensus, even if they, didn't really know that they did, by putting their thoughts on paper and putting it on the wall, and then everything goes down together to have a focus on the meeting on what exactly needs to happen.
My takeaway from this conversation was, in order to have buy-in, people need to weigh in. And to Jenny's point, having a meeting that everyone can participate in and not just a few people may dominate the conversation or whoever's putting on the meeting dominates the conversation, but to have everybody from staff up have their thoughts heard and weigh in on the issue will have them feel like they're purposeful in the meeting, and also will eliminate the meeting after the meeting we talked about, which is people going back to their desks and kind of trashing the meeting because nothing got done. But in this situation, they would have the opportunity to be heard in like a structured setting.
Yeah, similar, like as people want to be more involved, I think like autonomy was one topic that we talked about, and like wanting to be self-directed. So if you give people a voice and have them kind of almost guide them, don't be telling them what to do or what they should do, kind of lead them in the right direction and feel like they're controlling their own path. Is important. I mean, I think that's one thing that drove people as well as purpose. Of course, everyone wants to focus on a purpose. But as we all spoke about the sticky notes, I think that we did a couple times the exercise, and it was definitely a very eye-opening exercise. And we had, I think 10 years ago, we had a graduate from the Leadership Academy who graduated 10 years ago who came in and said he still uses the exercise and still loves the exercise, gets a lot out of it. So it's not something that's lost, and it's definitely a helpful way to help everyone get involved and collaborate.
I think for me, the biggest takeaway was we did an exercise where we were given just a couple of minutes to literally write down everything we do at work. And I within a couple of minutes, I think I had 100, not really 100, but probably a good 40 things that I had written down. And I was actually shocked. I mean, I knew I did a lot, but I was actually shocked how much I actually do. And so just going back to the one slide that Becca shared about the lack of inability to delegate, for me, that was almost an aha moment. Well, maybe it's not really a lack of an inability to delegate. It's really a lack of willingness to delegate. So have we as leaders almost in a sense perpetuated this idea that we're the only ones that can do it? And when it comes to leading others, for me, I want to train my staff to be smarter than what I am. And I want them to know every resource that's available to them. And I can't do that without first delegating. So delegate, and I think Bill's other word was execute.
Yeah, and so to follow on Trisha's point, once we list out those 100 things, we then need to sit back and think about who on our team could be the executors of these. And we had a 3-question acronym, and it's called GWC. So once we identify the people, do they get it? Do they want it? And do they have the capacity to do it? And we as the leaders need to answer those questions, because they may be able to get it and comprehend it. They might not want to do it, even if they have the capacity to do it. And once we're able to identify and answer those questions, then we really can figure out if we have the right people in the right seats, which we know will only help an organization grow.
To that point, one of the things was, what we love to do and we're good at, what we like to do and we're good at, and then all the way at the bottom was what we don't like to do and we're not good at. And those are the things that we need to identify other people, and we often think that that will burden those other people, and that's why we keep it to ourselves. But something that I don't want to do, somebody else may thrive on that, and that's something that we need to be better at.
Yeah,
And it all
connecting on
goes-
strengths,
It
yeah.
all goes back to the strengths,
strengths,
like knowing different people work better together, like it's not like you're gonna just wanna work with people with the same strengths. You gotta find people and understand what they do well and, mesh it.
All the stuff on your list, the folks that work beneath you are gonna have to do one day. So if you're not delegating to them or teaching them, how are they ever gonna work?
Right.
And it'll free you to spend more time with them as well. I
Yeah.
think that was a really good point. I think someone raised a question, well, if I've got things on my list that I don't like doing, why do I feel good giving it to somebody else? They're not gonna like it either, right? But, it'll free you up to spend more time with them. It'll teach them how to do it. So that really stuck with me.
And also with me, it's, you're also empowering the younger staff and interns to take ownership of a role at work. And as the more that you push down to them, they can then take a leadership role of their own and delegate themselves. So I think
Succession planning you were mentioning earlier.
We want to build great leaders as well as a great team, and we don't just want to build great workers.
Yeah.
I think that's really my sticking point too.
Transition to the last section that we did today, really talking about anticipating trends, what trends mean, the hard trend framework, soft trends, and how we can not just see the trends, right, but then translate that to opportunities. What can we do because of that? And so I wondered, what trends are you guys, I know you had a couple minutes to kind of put some goals down and to do some trend work yourselves. What trends are you seeing and what opportunities, most important, are you seeing for yourself, for your organization, and for our profession as a whole? Yeah, Trisha.
So, Tom, when he did his presentation this morning, was talking about the telescope, and, if you have it in, you're only going to see a small part of what's right in front of you. As you extend it out, you can see further and further. And obviously, when we all came to this Leadership Academy, the number one thing we all were concerned with was pipeline and staff talent shortage. So when I think about, well, why is that occurring and what can we do? I really see an opportunity where our profession likely needs to adapt, be more flexible, and shift to a realm where some of these small startup companies are really working wherever you want to, and providing unlimited PTO like Addie's firm does, and providing maternity, paternity, family leave now instead. And we called it a movement and we were sectioned off into little triads. And my we coined the phrase, it's a movement towards socialism. And we put socialism in quotes because obviously sometimes that comes with a negative connotation. But really what it is, it's getting back to the core values of people. And what do our people want? And so Rebecca had shared, the advocacy group, Patriot, I can't remember what it's called, at this point, but that Gen Z group is now demanding these things of employers, or will be demanding things of these employers. This is our time. This is our time to, what do they want and how are we going to work to get there?
I thought a key takeaway from today as well, and even starting with yesterday, was, it's one thing to sit here and think about what are the trends. Okay, it's obviously technology is advancing, right? It's obvious there are going to be trends coming out of the pandemic and remote, but then what do you do next? What's that next step? We're starting to put some concrete, structure and framework together with some of the stuff that we talked about today. I found that really beneficial as well. It's not always easy to sit down and think about what the trends are, but then moving on to that next step is the difficult piece.
Yeah, definitely.
And also, one thing learned almost every day is how great of an organization MACPA is.
I didn't pay him, I promise.
And we talked about collaborating, we talked about trends, and I knew, a quarter, like, luckily I came here and spoke to colleagues and other people in the industry to understand where everyone else sits, and learned a whole lot just that way than any way else of just reading articles online.
To that point, collaboration between firms and businesses, I think really this opportunity has really opened my eyes for that, and definitely rings true over the last 2 years with COVID, with law changes, regulation changes. You need to rely on people that you know in your network that might have different takes on it, and that ties into the opportunities coming from the changes and the trends. One that I thought of was technology. Obviously, it's a big change. Opportunity there would be for the new staff or new hires having a different job description, because a lot of the work that they kind of were made to do now is done through technology. So they're going to come in and have more important level work right off the bat, and will probably benefit retainage.
Any other trends you want to highlight? Ross? Okay.
Okay, the list right there.
The list is on the wall in front of us if
I
you'd
mean,
like to
a
talk
lot of
about
big
more.
ones that
Yeah.
come up a lot. I mean, the increased focus on corporate responsibility, all the trends with ESG, right? I mean, that's going to impact regulatory, political, social, even technological from some standpoint.
Definitely.
And we've already hit on the workforce trends and the pipeline and change in the generational shift in the talent pool. We talked a lot about, again, from results of the pandemic, we went to a very remote model. As people go back to the office, if you're ever going to get back to that full in the office, not likely. There's a lot of hybrid things that are happening here. So, identifying those trends and figuring out what works for your staff, your seniors, your company.
And a lot of the trends that we identified, like the hard trends, there's more of a risk not investing than there is, just letting it go. You want to be proactive. You don't want to be reactive. It's usually not looking at straight numbers, but more calls. There's a big not doing anything.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to thank you all so much for being willing to experiment with me a little bit when we put this together, and raising your hand, Brian, Ginny, Ryan, Jason, Trisha, Addie. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to switch the camera back. And let's see. Now you should see me, audience. And thank you so very much for joining us for some really interesting conversation. I hope you learned a lot. You got a little taste of what our Leadership Academy is like, and you got to see some amazing future leaders of our profession, which makes me very hopeful and excited for the future of our profession. One thing I wanted to mention before we left was that our mentor program, the application actually closes, I believe, next week. So if you haven't done that, that is one way to invest in that pipeline right now. Not just in the pipeline, but also retention. It's not a recruiting tool necessarily. We have to make that clear, but we really like to help people along in their career path. And so whether you know of a student or an intern that could use kind of someone to share ideas with or to bounce things off of, whether you are more of in a senior role and want to give back to the profession, we've had people of all ages participate as mentees and as mentors. And so we would welcome you to participate in this program. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend.
I want to say something real quick, Rebecca. We had some audio problems hearing the panelists. So for any of our members that are on here and couldn't hear, we're going to edit this video. We're going to get when the panel, because they said some amazing things and I want everybody to benefit. They were fantastic. So we're going to go back and edit this and send the link back out to view for everybody that would like to view them. But fantastic program. Thank you all so much. Thank the panelists and thank all of our members for being here. We really appreciate it and we'll see you next month.
Thank you so much.